And it is with His help and mercy that we could be able to stand here. And I want to thank the Lord for the traveling mercies that He had given to me to go to some different, difficult countries. And yet the Lord brought me back home safely. Greeting from Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Indonesia. If you want to accept the greetings, we want to share with you. Now, it is a little bit over 100 years. There was a great announcement, great expectation, just like what we are expecting in 1925. What is going to happen in 1925? And man is going to send men to Mars that they may be able to make a colony there. We don't know if they could, but man is trying. And every time, a particular period of time, men want to make something great. In 60s, people were so much talking about the space race, and it is conquering the moon. Who goes first? Soviet Russia or USA or USSR? It's a back and forth and back and forth. Every week we hear, okay, USSR sent something, then comes US send. Suddenly we hear that USSR already landed on the moon. Yes, they did. And, it was without man. Anyway, and then we heard one after another. Okay, then we hear that the Russia sent a monkey into the moon. Then USA that we sent man into the moon. So it was a kind of competition finally come to the end. Now nobody talks about the moon. Okay, although there is a conspiracy theory whether or not they landed on the moon, but then the story finished. Now the other mission goes. Now, similar to this one, there was a big launching of in April 10, 1912. There was a big thing, the largest vessel on the ocean, which was going to sail across the Atlantic Ocean and going to make many world records. It was going to be the largest vessel which was ever made, which was on the water. And it was the largest vessel and the first vessel ever to cross Atlantic Ocean through the coldest part of the Northern Atlantic. And it was going to be the only one, according to them, and the largest one, which was carrying many multi-millionaires in those days. Well, today millionaires are nothing. We even have many millionaires in Roanoke. But then those days, to be a millionaire, it was so big. Even when we were a little bit younger, and when we were talking about a Rockefeller, he was a millionaire. It was a big thing. Today, millionaire everywhere. Little fellows are millionaires everywhere. But in those days, that was a big thing. They had about 11 millionaires from the top millionaires of the world were there. So they were going into the ocean. You remember what I'm talking about? Titanic. This was so huge, they said that, and according to their calculation, then it was like so big of 4 city block long. So very big. Now here in the US, when you ask how far it is, they say 2 blocks away. We talk about the blocks. If you go to Philippines and how far it is, they say 2 rides, 3 rides. They have a small jeepney. It's a public transport. You remember that? Small public transportation. They have to change 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. How far is? Oh, it's 2 rides, brother. We don't know how far is 1 ride. But they have to change it 3 times the jeepney. Jeepney is what? The old American Willys Jeep, where they used in the World War, is now converted into a kind of public transportation system. Until now they use it, which is the American used in World War II, is what is they use now. So with that they ride 2 times, 3 times. Now it is about 4 blocks long. It was about 11 stories above the water, and there may be few underneath. It's a huge one, according to the standard about 100 years ago. Today it's different. Today we got 5 times bigger than that. The Oasis is the biggest one. It's 5 times bigger than Titanic. Okay. Interesting thing, whenever somebody makes big, they're proud, their nose goes up. You remember what happened in 9/11? When the aircraft hit the Twin Tower, exactly the same moment, there was a conference of architects and builders boasting in Japan. They were quoting and citing their achievement of the Twin Tower. And inadvertently they were mentioning, even if a Boeing 747 belly full of the fuel hit this tower, it will not fall. Lo and behold, before they finish that sentence, goes down the tower. Exactly the same thing. The captain was so proud. He was saying that, I don't even think God could sink this ship if he wanted. Is it like it's challenging, like what they did there in Babel, construction of Babel Tower? It is something so they can go above the heaven. And now, he said, even if God wanted, I don't think he can sink this ship. I think this is blasphemy. It is speaking against the Most High. If God wants, he can sink the whole earth and can go nowhere. It can spin, and it could be going to the undisclosed destination. God spins it in the right destination, right place, because of his mercy and grace and his law makes them to float on this place where it has nothing to hold. But God, when you say nothing to hold, but God's grace and his power holds it. When you say nothing, it's nothing. But it is God's grace. And then the vessel was on the coldest water. It was at the time, it was 32 degrees. It's a 0 Celsius, correct? It's a freezing point. I think 0 Celsius, how long you can be there, young people? You can be there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. After that, you are frozen, sure. But this was the situation. And then when they were enjoying that one, because they were making a record, they were all enjoying. It was a kind of mini kind of entertainment place, like what they call here today, what is it, theme park or whatever it is, something like that. They had everything in it. So now, they forgot their journey. They forgot everything they were mentioning. We made a record. The first one to sail on this one, first one to do this one, first one to do this one, first. Everything was first. Yeah, the first one to sing to later. And then, while they were busy with this one, they were receiving telegram. Young people may not know what is telegram. And those days, when we were young, like you, there is one kind of technology that was a high technology in those days. They used to send the message, not like your SMS. They used to use a kind of Morse code, and then it sends the message. It's short and sweet always. It's not with the big grammatic sentence and everything. Whatever the words that we need to avoid, we avoid, because every word is charged. If you write I, you pay for one word. Am is one word. So going is one word. So we avoid I am. So we say going. We understand that in a telegraphic term. So they received 5 telegrams warning them that there is an iceberg. And I want to you know the story, but I want you to pay attention here a little bit. They received warning 5 telegrams stating that they were inching forward to iceberg. They have to change their direction, at least 10 degrees. They could avoid. And one after another, iceberg ahead, change the direction. They didn't pay attention. And then the 6th one comes. But this time, it's not telegram, it's a radio message. It comes there. The operator says that, iceberg ahead. Turn around. And the man here, who was busy here, receiving the messages and everything, he sends back the message, be quiet, I'm busy. What was he busy? He was trying to reckon all the achievement they are going to make. And he was not ready to change the direction, to change and defeat the the world record of number one to cross the Atlantic Ocean in one stretch, in the fastest crossing. He said that, I'm busy. Keep quiet. That's rude, according to today's. By then, was more crude. And then, meantime, when he sends, keep quiet, I'm busy, the man up there who was watching, and he was panicked. He saw something bright, something big, and the man, those days they don't have the intercom or whatever it is to call. They have a tube to communicate from the top to bottom. They have a tube. It speaks through the tube. So everything is, for you now looks so primitive, but that was the ultra modern at the time. And he communicates through the tube, and he says that iceberg, and turn the engines to reverse. It was too late already. By the time he says iceberg, and he hit. And then it was gone into two pieces. And you know all the rest of the story. In here, number one, they wanted to make a record. Number two, they wanted to show their pride. They wanted to show that they are above everything. And the captain himself was exalting that even God cannot sing it if he wish. If he wish, he can sing even the sun and the entire galaxy. But then just to talk about the tiny little vessel for God is nothing. And this pride, Proverbs 16:18, what do you read that? Pride goes before distraction. And before they could exalt their pride, they didn't know what to do, how it is. It says, iceberg, stop. They didn't pay attention. And then, in addition to that, not only that, when he says, iceberg, stop, through the tube, because of that entertainment, everything, the noise and everything, they don't pay attention to whatever the warning. Warning by the telegram, warning by the radio message, warning by the watchtower man. None of those things gone into the air. And they did not pay attention. And then he rings the bell. The bell rings for 3 minutes. That's a final warning, like a trumpet. And nothing happened. Lost. Hit the mountain and lost the life, many of them. And one of the men who was very wealthy and a rich man, he was called Major Pauchin, he carried with him 300,000 pounds, which will be about 400 or, oh no, it's about 1 to 2. 300,000 is more than $500,000 he was carrying at that time in his possession. He kept that in a safe in his cabin. When everyone has to run for their life, he jumped out of the ship only with the 3 oranges. All those $500,000 could not save him. Our money, our possessions, our titles, nothing could save us. Then he had the big title, important man, wealthy man. He had money, he had title, he had everything. But then when he has to jump, he jumps out only with the 3 oranges. None of them he could use even. Which means, even though he came out of that ship with 3 oranges, how many did he use? 0. So, and many people didn't even bother to use the lifeboat. Some even could not even. And they were so sure that many of them, let us say that none of them even, insured themselves or anything because they were for sure that it is unsinkable. It will go through. Many times, we take it for granted, the same thing, the ship will go through. Yes, it will. Depends who is the pilot, who is the captain. It will go through, It is only depending on the captain. If the captain is somebody else, that is different. Is there any ship which is unsinkable, or was there any ship unsinkable? I can remember only 3 ships unsinkable. One was Noah's Ark, which could never be sunk because God made it, God sustained it, and God let it float, and God rested it there. And this was the ship which was built not through any other industry or any other designer. God designed it, God floated it, God made it to sustain. The second ship, which was unsinkable, was the ship which Moses used. The little floating vessel. You would have never sank because God made the provision. One was big. It can even host even the elephant and biggest animals even. But the other one is the tiniest one, and which could never sink because of God's provision. Can you agree with me or no? Doesn't matter the size of the ship, but who is the captain? Maybe big, small. And how much technology was there in that ship which Moses used? Simplest one. Even tiny little hole at the bottom, and it could sing. Correct? It is only a basket. I don't know, the baskets in those days were better than today's basket. Baskets always find some way to find, there is some holes always, right? Even if you nicely glued and insulated, there might be some holes. But then, those days were not that high technology as today. But then, if God can shut, He can shut. If He wants to open it, He can open it. Okay, even with the basket full of hole, He can still make it float. Water can stop. So then the third ship is what we read in Mark chapter 4. This ship was after Jesus was speaking to the people, his first parable about his kingdom, about the sower, about mustard seed, about a few other things. He was talking about this is how the kingdom of heaven is going to be. And he preached and he preached and he preached. He was so tired. He was preaching and healing, and he was tired. Yeah, I remember an experience of a minister we were told. He was traveling so much and preaching so much. Once he was on the pulpit, he asked the congregation to stand for the silent prayer. He knelt down and he slept. He was so tired. Then the congregation standing for a while, then they realized what went wrong. When they found that, the brother was really seriously tired. Can a minister be tired? Yes. Can a preaching be tiresome? Sometimes can be. And Christ was speaking for so long, and he slept on his pulpit. That was his pulpit. He was preaching from the boat. Now, when I just kind of make complaint from there when they don't use microphone. Have you heard that? I'm not so happy when they don't use a microphone because I want to hear. It's in the sanctuary, in the enclosure. But when Jesus was speaking where? It was not in an auditorium with the acoustic setup and everything. No microphone, nothing. He was speaking in the sea. And he was so tired, he slept. And this is one of those the proof that we can say that the human nature of Christ. He experienced all the human need, like tired, sleep, hungry, and everything. And he slept. Now, while he slept, Now let's say this vessel where the disciples are there. They also forgot, exactly like the Titanic people. They forgot the presence of Jesus. Also, probably they might be talking so many other things. They might be talking about their greatness or whatever the things. And they forgot the presence of Jesus. How do you know that they forgot the presence of Jesus? The scripture says, and the spirit of prophecy also says in Desire of Ages, page 334, suddenly a flash of lightning pierced the darkness, and they see Jesus lying asleep. Until then, they did not see Jesus. They did not feel the presence of Jesus. They were busy. When they were in the boat, comes a big storm. And this storm is something so different. In the Bible, in the Mark chapter 4, verse 37, and it says, and there arose a storm of wind. It is because of wind. And for those who were there in Galilee, maybe I can refresh for you. It's not a big sea. It's a kind of lake, but we call it as a sea. It's one of the largest, the freshwater lake. It is about 15.5 miles in length, about 8 miles in width. And together there is also, the source of that one, there is also a big mountain, which is about 10,000, closer to 10,000 feet. And the water level is about 680 feet below the sea level. So it's like this. The Galilee Sea is below the sea level, and on top of that is a mountain about 10,000 feet. So there is a distance between the top of the mountain to the top of the water was about 10,000 feet. But then, and the sea level is here and about 600 feet down. This was a kind of making a funnel to pass the wind. When the wind passed through, it raises the water level. Sometimes the wave goes to 40 feet and above. And I have experienced several times when we used to travel there in Indonesia. Indonesia is an island country. They have over 7,000 islands, and only less than half of that is inhabited. So our people were scattered in different islands. We had to go only by the ship. When you say ship and you comes to the mind that the cruise, you are thinking about, the multi-storied. It's not that way. It's a small boat, and usually it's a kind of a very primitive one made of wood. And sometimes and they use the kind of the Yamaha motor. There is a big rod there. They have the motor there. They just immerse the motor in the water, and the ship goes. And when they want to stop it, they press it here. The motor goes above the water, and it slows down. That's how it goes. You remember that. This is how it goes. And then one time, it was so heavily raining. When it rains, there is nothing to stop the rain from coming. And if it is storm, there is nothing to stop the storm water. The water flows in. So what the passengers do, everybody busy throwing the water out. So this is how we travel. That at one time, we were together with one of the senior ministers there, right in the middle of the ocean, about 1 o'clock in the morning, dark night, rain, and the engine failed. They have to fix it. So they stopped right in the middle, and the people were panicking. He said, "Don't worry. What's the problem? The engine got a problem. I'll fix it now." What did he do? The man there, he does this like this. There is a rod, a lever like that, and the motor is here. And somebody holds here and it ties here. The man just lean on that. He lies there on top of this rod. He was fixing. And any time, because of his weight or anything, the boat could even tumble. So we were seeing this one. We were all panic. And the minister next to us was telling, we are also like the lack of faith like that of Mark chapter 4. So no, let's see that the Lord will protect. If it is His will, we will reach. If His will that we have to go to the bottom of the ocean, there may be a reason. Let it be so. But the others were so panicked. Sometimes we travel like that. So now, here exactly the same way, the wave rose to 40 feet. 40 feet is quite a huge, over 10 meters up. And it goes above the boat. And these people were just throwing the water, cleaning up the things, water. This was when the lightning struck. They found that Jesus was there. What was he doing? Sleeping. And the storm could not wake him. The water splashed on him could not wake him. Not that he was so tired. He was tired also. But he had a perfect peace because he trusted in the Father. And that is exactly what is needed. When Peter comes, Peter is always having a little bit extra size of everything. And what did he say? Don't you care for us? Here we are perishing. You know, interestingly, in the verse 24, what is in Greek word, they use word seismos. We remember we use the word, the seismometer. What is it used for? Yes, to measure the earthquake. And here, this, exactly the same word they use also, the wave and the storm was such a heavy, it was like an earthquake. It shook the water, shook the boat, shook everything. They felt like they were having earthquake. And suddenly comes the thunder and the lightning, and they saw Jesus lying down. And instead of waking him up or doing anything, he comes and he just kind of a gentle rebuke. Don't you care for us that we all perish? Oh, that was a real strong word to talk to the master in those days. And here, and I just in this, the whole scenario, before we go a little bit further, the three elements are here in this parable. One is the storm. Two is the boat. And three is Jesus and his commanding peace. And it's like the troubled water. What the Desire of Ages, page 336 says. There is another spiritual lesson in this miracle of stilling of the tempest. Every man's experience testifies to the truth of the words of Scripture. Okay, here as soon as Jesus was awakened, what did Jesus say? First thing he said, peace, be still. There was no sign of alarm in his words or his countenance. Suddenly when you see your boat is sinking, I don't think that he will be smiling. Correct? No matter, we're all farmers, sure. But you know that your boat is going to sink. Definitely you are not going to smile. At one time we were in Chile. They took us through that river which is connecting Argentina, Chile, and all those neighboring countries. It was so dark, so black, and so deep. We were in the middle, the sailing was about 5 hours. So right about in the middle of the journey, there was one minister with me. He was afraid to come into the boat because he never knew how to swim. But the young people convinced him to get into the boat, and he came inside. But he sat right in the middle of the boat, so he doesn't want to see the water. But outside the water, outside the boat, inside the water was so beautiful thing. You can see all the beauty of nature. But then when we were all telling him that, and he said, no, they're all enticing him to come out to see. He refused to come. He sat flat on the ground. And finally, when the people were just still telling that what is up there, then he asked, how deep is that? The brother who was escorting has said 3 miles. Now, I'm not telling how far it is, how deep it is. He said 3 miles. This way, vertical. Is it vertical? Yes. Oh, the brother said, no, I'm not coming the other side. Imagine 3 miles down is going to be so heavy. But then the sea is going to be much more than 3 miles down. So then Here he says that. Then he says that, peace be still. Then here he says that Isaiah chapter 57, verse 20 and 21. The wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. Sometimes we talk, Sister Elsa and I talk, there is no rest for the wicked. And she said, no, she corrects it. No, there is no rest for the weary. Sometimes, we need some rest too. Anyway, here, and the troubled sea is like a wicked. And all have sinned, what? Have come short of glory of God. And then all without the grace of God, we have lost the glory of Him, because we all have come short of it because of our sin. And thankful to the Lord that He made a provision, something different than what we would be experiencing here. And at this time, I want you to pay attention here. In this particular boat, the devil mastered the science of nature. And he also mastered the history of the church. At the time, the entire church was on the boat. Do you agree with me? The whole church was there on the boat. Jesus and all disciples. And that was the first church, the early church. Just like 2 years ago, there was an air crash in Poland. They had all the top officials, 5 or 7 of them. President, vice president, chief justice, general, everybody together came landing, crashed. And that created a constitutional crisis there in that country. Similar to this one, if the devil would destroy this early church, he can see that he succeeded. But then he brought the storm. But in the presence of Jesus, the storm has no meaning. Okay. When Jesus used the word be still, he used only 2 words. Most powerful word. In Greek word also, the same thing. It's the 2 words together. It's like be muzzled if you translate it. Stop. Nothing, no power. He put all the power of the devil subdue. And then Jesus had to rebuke his disciple also. Don't you have faith at all? Now I want to ask you some questions. Many times we take it for granted. When they were having peaceful time, they forgot that Jesus was there, right? This is what they didn't realize, that Jesus was there. 2, Jesus repeatedly says that I have come that they will have life, life abundant. And they forgot that the life giver is there where death will fear. And they feared. Every time when they forget about the power of Christ, they always got into trouble. And many times when we are self-sufficient, there in that Titanic, they were self-sufficient. They needed nothing. And here in this boat also, the disciples were they forgot Christ and they thought that they were okay. Can we talk about ourselves today's condition? Are we self-sufficient? Possible, correct? And when everything goes peace, people forgot the need of a Savior. And suddenly something can happen. Many years ago, we met somebody in Tennessee. We received an SOS call that someone is going to commit suicide. Oh, we thought, what shall we do? The whole entire ministerial community of this country was there in Tennessee at the time. Then some of us decided to go there to rescue that person. When he arrived there, we found that it was a very serious case. As he said, a serious case of depression. And then he wanted to commit suicide. We put them in the car. While the car was running, he wanted to jump out of the car in the running highway. So we put the child lock and everything, tried to keep him content. Why he wants to kill himself? He was a very big man, big businessman in New York. Together with the collapsing of Twin Tower, he lost his wife. He lost his job. His company was gone. And he was at the time traveling elsewhere, so he was not killed. knowing that his wife was killed and his sister was killed in this crash. His parents were coming with his only child to see what was happening. They were killed in an accident on the way to the Twin Tower. And the man lost his job and lost family, lost everything. He was highly qualified. Whenever he applied for a job, he was overqualified. So he could not get a job. So his education couldn't do anything. His money couldn't do anything. He had no family. He said, why should I live? Suddenly, 1 minute can change your life. Correct? A little storm. So now, if you feel the presence of Jesus, then we will be safer all the time. And Psalm 107, verses 29 and 30, say that He makes the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. Then are they glad because they be quiet. So bringeth them unto their desired haven. And what can bring peace? Romans chapter 5, verse 1, being justified by faith, we have peace with God. If we have peace with God, we have peace in our life. Whenever there is a turbulence, there is a problem in our life, in our society, in our family, or in the church, something to be reconsidered. Set our account straight with God. That is what is needed. And Isaiah 32:17 also saying that the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness quietness, and assurance forever. So in order for us to have that peace that Jesus pronounced, that He is the Prince of Peace, then we need to let Him come into our heart. And if He can rest in our heart, we are rest assured that we have peace within. And we don't have to have that. And if Jesus is in, we have no problem. Many times the problem comes when we just don't feel the presence of Jesus. And whenever the problem comes, the world asks, where was God when and the New Orleans was in trouble? God was there, but they didn't feel the presence of God. And God never brings problem at all. And people never realize the presence of God. In the presence of Jesus, the death fear. Do you agree with me? The death fear. This is what the sisters of Lazarus told, Lord, had you been here, my brother would have been dead. Sure. Because He is alive. Original and borrowed and derived. He gives life. Now, after this one, and the storm was still, peace was there. He commanded the wind stop, and waves subside, and the sea was just like our tabletop. It's plain. So I think after that, they probably have to really sail with their oar, because the wind cannot take them anymore. But then, after they reached the peace, what was their next question? I want you to ponder about this one in conclusion. Who is this? Did they realize that they were with God, with all this powerful thing? And who is this? They know Him from the beginning. They saw all the miracles. They heard all the parables. And they ask Him, who is this? Even the wind obey. Who is this? We should have an answer. This is my Savior. If that would be your answer, you will have peace, peace within. I can do nothing without Him, but I can do everything with His grace. A little girl was on a train, and it was a kind of very inclement weather, storm, rain, wind, everything. The train was, people say that a ship, but then I say it's a train. And then the people were so concerned when they looked through the window outside. It was a flooding. The water comes even to the level of the track, even hitting the wheel. And some people are calling for prayer, some were crying for help, some were even rebuking God and everything. There was one little girl sitting there. She was enjoying. She doesn't care everything. The one grandma was asking, Don't you see what is going on there? You were so quiet and peaceful and you are not afraid of anything. No, I don't have to. But why? Is it the engineer of this train or the driver of this train is my father. He knows how to take home safely. She just trusted her father, so she was in peaceful mind. And if you get into the airplane, you don't trust the pilot, you are in trouble. One time I was flying from London to here, and it was the Women's Day, International Women's Day, and we forgot that. Usually we forget Women's Day. And the women remember that. And then we were right in the middle of the plane, and the pilot announces that, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, today is Women's Day. The entire crew is women. All of them. There was one big man sitting next to me. Do you think that we are going to reach home safely? I said, I believe so. But when you come out, these days, they greet the passengers when they come out. The pilot comes out. The captain was a tiny little lady, as big as my wife's size, and a little bit smaller and thinner than my wife's size. And the lady, the man just next to me was like, were you the one navigating and commanding the ship? He said, yes, sir. Had I known that you were the one, before I get in, I would have stepped out of the plane. So I'm glad you didn't see me before. But then, sometime we have to trust. One time I saw a bumper sticker in the gas station, a car before me. It says, God is my co-pilot. Have you seen that? I feel sorry for that man. Why? He should change the seat. If God is going to be co-pilot, he is going to pilot and he is going to crash. If God is going to be co-pilot, change the seat. Let him be your pilot. Let him be the life giver, a peace giver. And the peace in storm only possible through the Prince of Peace. Being justified by faith, we have peace with God. May God help us that we can have wonderful experience. Remember, all time, Jesus is with us. And not only when the lightning comes, the thunder comes, we've seen the lightning. Sometimes people remember Christ only when they're in trouble. But we remember all the time the trouble gets out of our way. May God bless us and keep us. Being justified by faith, we have peace with God. This is my prayer for this morning. Amen.